The Broken Agenda Podcast.
Boule boule!
Boule boule. Boule boule. Boule boule. Boule boule. Take it, Tyler!
No.
In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We are talking about Elder's Cut Mead. I have not had mead I'm definitely going to be buying some of your mead because I am excited to try it.
Well, also because it's good.
And because I've heard it's fantastic. Yes. I literally have heard it's fantastic as I was doing research on the company. But I don't know, how'd you guys, well, why don't you give us your names, tell us who you are, and tell us a little bit about Elder's Cut.
I'm Scott Grizbek. I was basically the idea behind the company. I was, before this, I owned a raw fermented vegetable company, and we were national. I sold it in 2019, got out of that business, and then wanted to continue doing some sort of a entrepreneurial thing in the food and beverage world.
Okay.
And mead seemed like a really cool idea. I had been doing some R&D work on some stuff just in my kitchen for fun. And one day I was thinking to myself, like, this would be something cool to have, like, at a farmer's market, or just like a little. I wasn't really thinking about it, having it as a huge company or anything like that. And I needed a place to make it because I started to look into what I had to do, and I had to go and get everything turned into like an actual kitchen and everything like that. And I didn't have that space on my property, but I knew he did, and we've known each other forever. And so I gave him a phone call one day, and I said, "Carm, can I use your pole barn and turn it into a meadery? I'll pay your rent, whatever." He's like, "How about we just go into business together?" I was like, well, "Okay."
That's a great buddy.
I mean, I'm not
half my building.
I'm not exaggerating. That's about the depth of the first conversation.
That's amazing.
And I was like, "Okay, cool. I'll talk to you soon." And then
He did ask. He said, well, "Did you ever make wine before?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "It's a lot like that." I said, "Okay, well, let's just do it together."
Yeah, I don't think you realize what you've got going on here. I've known Jimmy for over 20 years. I asked him for $5 the other day, and he punched me in the face. like those types of friendships don't really exist.
Don't get me wrong. I didn't ask Carmine for money.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
So anyway, I brought on board a lot of the expertise in fermenting stuff and the brand expertise, because I've been doing brand work in food since 2000. I mean, that's what I do for a living. And now I spend my wife's money for a living.
Nice. Are you a kept man? Please say yes.
Well, not exactly.
That's my goal, to be a kept man too. I'm doing a terrible job of it, but
there's got to be some return on investment here for her.
That's our handsome, perfect bodies. That's how we pay them back, right?
That's why I got the meat company.
Fair enough.
So anyway, from that, Carmine and I are full partners otherwise, and you can.
Yeah, so pretty much from there we said, all right, well, let's figure this out. So as you could imagine, lots of hoops.
Give me a sec. Yeah. I hate to interrupt, but pull your mic closer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You don't end up with you just got to be conscious of it. It took us a little while to get
Gotcha. So what happened was, as you can imagine, you had to jump through a whole bunch of hoops, right? So, and it was right during COVID, right? So, takes a long time to get feedback, so we had to build this thing out, figure out how to get permits, how to even structure it, and do the whole project. So some of the projects should have taken about 6 months, ended up taking about 2 years, right? So it took a while. Now this also helped because it gave us a good amount of time to get a whole bunch of R&D done. Now he had brought a bunch of R&D. I mean, he was good with that.
That's what I do.
But we got a lot of it perfected while it was taking me a long time to sort of build it out, figure out the permits with my younger brother Emilio too, he's a partner and he's an attorney, right? So he helped us with with that.
That's a handy guy to have on the team.
You need it's so much. If you ever take a peek at the PLCB website, you understand it's like you need to be an attorney to understand like how to do anything.
Well, that was one of the number one things when I realized you guys were coming on. I wanted to talk about was I have no idea how you even navigate that.
It takes help.
I don't either. We were kind of hoping that you would help us out with that.
And we made a lot of phone calls, and we call people and ask.
We still don't know.
I bet you still don't.
Still
Yeah,
don't know.
that makes sense.
And all kidding aside, like when you call them, they don't know.
Well, yeah, that's
they're like, okay, well, we think it's like this, but you might have to call this person, and then,
Oh, yeah,
then
no,
you
you-
have to call that person, and then I mean, it's till by the time you get your answer, you've called 10 people, you've made a list of answers, and they're not all the same, and I mean, it took a while.
We've had food manufacturers on this show before, and all of them say the same thing. At least we're not dealing in booze in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So it's everybody knows it. Like it's the most difficult state, next to maybe Utah, in the country to deal with what you guys do with.
I owned a raw fermented food company for 13 years. And in those 13 years, I didn't run into the problems, total in those 13 years that we've run into in the short period of time that we've been
Get outta here,
selling.
really?
Oh, it's crazy.
And is it all LCB stuff, the Liquor Control Board?
Mostly, yeah.
Yeah.
Not 100%. There's just so many issues and taxes and everything, and none of it is put in a way that's easy for someone who's not an expert in it to understand. In fact, I would even say it's probably not even put in a way that somebody who is an expert can understand it. But if you're not an expert, forget about it. It's really, really difficult.
Well, if it's clear cut, you can't have loopholes. So, I mean, we got to make sure we keep those loopholes in there.
If there's loopholes, we don't know about those either.
That's what makes it scary, the loopholes, I mean, it's good and not good, I guess, at the same time.
Yeah, but I mean, we're not trying to loophole anything, to be honest with you. It's just that there's an awful lot of stuff. Now, as Carmine and I have said to each other many times, a lot of this is barriers to entry. So there's a lot of people who maybe make mead, make wine, make beer, make, whatever, all kinds of ideas. And maybe they have a great idea, maybe they don't. But then they look at this kind of stuff and they're like, well, I can't do that.
Yeah.
And certainly, Carmine's dealt with many things in his career, so that he's kind of a nerd to a lot of this stuff. And I was a business owner for 13 years. And so, I certainly have the attitude of, I'll figure this out. Like, you're not going to stop me with this.
Right.
And so we plunge ahead. Sometimes we're ahead of the questions. Sometimes we're asking forgiveness. Sometimes we're making quick phone calls saying, please don't shut us down. It's, but
We're trying to do it.
I'm laughing. And then I felt really bad. I'm like, you might be serious. Crap.
We're trying to do it right, really.
we are trying. Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think that the fact that we aren't actually trying to get around anybody's rules for anything makes it easier. We're not trying to hide anything. It's just like, oh shit, I didn't know how we had to do that.
Right.
Yeah. Well, so like just a simple, something, just to give an example, just something as simple as the label, right? So all the labels have to get approved. Every word on the label, sizing of the letters, stuff like that, right? Just font size, everything.
Like, you have to call it mead with Persian lime.
You're still producing mead, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You're producing mead. You're bottling mead.
yeah,
you're just
yeah.
not slapping labels on it.
So now,
no.
now we're all.
Oh yeah, this is the right. Yeah.
No,
All the labels
Oh,
were-
that
Oh,
process
at that
in your
point, right,
story.
right, right.
Like, so you're not holding up production. You just can't sell.
Right.
You can't
right,
market
yes,
because you don't
correct.
have final marketing
Correct.
materials. You can't do anything.
Correct.
So we had a boatload
Exactly.
of mead in bottles.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you still don't know if there's a market for this. Like, you could end up with an entire warehouse of
We
mead.
did have an entire warehouse.
But I mean,
See, that's terrifying.
That's extremely disappointing, huh?
was-
A whole warehouse full of mead.
I would like to.
It shrunk a little bit here and there.
What do you do with something like that? You go through the Rolodex, yo, man, what's going on?
Just saying, you've been to my bar. You'd only be polite.
I'm giving away free bottles of mead.
Yeah, wink, wink.
Which is not what we planned to do. So.
Yeah. So long story short, you're right. So we continued building inventory, aging inventory, and jumped through the hoops, and then there was more hoops of learning how to distribute, right? Because all the distribution laws and everything's different, right? So it's not like just distributing food, right? So even dealing with the Pennsylvania stores, which is even part of our permit,
Okay.
right? Still, like it's like starting over again to say, okay, now we're ready to distribute with you guys. A whole new set of rules and set of people to deal with. And then when you start to deal with the private sector, like some of the bigger box stores and the chains, it's a whole thing. So we're pretty early on in that process. What we found was, and we should have backed up and started with this, what we also did not want to do in our business plan was, we didn't want to start with the tasting room, right? So we wanted to be a brand, and we want to focus on making good mead, right? Making a good brand, good mead, and we want to work with restaurants and bars, right? So we don't want to necessarily be our own tasting room. Now, we're not saying we won't down the road, maybe, but that was never really meant to be the core of what we do.
So if I understand, you're focused more on like the distribution,
Yes.
get it out there, than you are on like the winery type of approach. Okay.
Well, and my background was always make stuff, sell in stores. Make stuff, sell in stores. Like I never sold direct. And I was very successful in doing so, and so we have the same idea with this. But there was another reason too. You know, one of the things is that neither Carmine and I, after all of our experiences in the past, neither of us wanted to spend any money on this. Now, I mean, not any, but I made a lot of mistakes in my first company in, with my father-in-law and I just throwing a bunch of money trying to get the company big. And we wasted a lot of money. We really did.
It's easy to do.
It is.
It really is.
I learned a lot of lessons. It was a very expensive school to go to. And so one of our founding thoughts on this is don't spend what you don't have to spend. Well, a tasting room is something that you don't have to spend, but you have to, or that you don't have to have. You have to have an idea of how to sell it, of course,
Yep.
but you don't have to have a tasting room. But if you do have a tasting room, you're going to have to drop a couple $100,000 into making that tasting room someplace that somebody wants to go.
Yep.
And, we both have nice properties, but we also have wives who will shoot us if we start to have the public come over to drink.
Like the
stuff.
Field of Dreams line of cars going to your house. Yeah, my wife would murder me too.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
no. I'd have that for a week, and then you'd be like, okay, which pig farmer did you give his body to?
Yep.
So we had to do it without the tasting room, and so we do various large festivals. We are in as many restaurants in Chester and Berks, and we're getting into Montgomery County as possible. A lot of that is for sales, and a lot of that is for marketing too. To get people interested. We're in 10 of the state stores right now.
That's impressive, because that's a tough market to break into.
Yeah. It not quite as tough as you'd think. They kind of have to do that for you.
So,
since you're from
really?
Pennsylvania.
So we're technically a winery license.
Okay.
So Mead can fall under two different licenses, but we're under a winery license, and part of your winery licenses is that they offer you 10 of your choice, right? 10 stores of your choice. Then how well you do, then however well you do, depends on how long you stay and how that relationship goes.
Who is it that offers you the stores, like the state?
The state.
The Liquor Control Board.
Yeah, that's part of the license.
So what, did you just go down the list and handpick?
There's data. There's data to show you how you want to do it.
Why do they limit you to 10 stores?
That's just the license.
Yeah.
So
That's just the license.
we're on a podcast. I'm going to ask this. You don't have to answer it, but you said it depends on how well you do. How well are you doing?
Mm-hmm. So Scott can answer that. He's our numbers.
Okay.
So, we'll say first off, Mead is not the biggest seller in the state stores.
Okay.
So as we have found out, they were like, okay, well, Mead hasn't caught on in the state stores nearly as much as we had hoped for. But that being said, in those 10 stores that we're at, we're about 60% of the dollar sales and about 45% of the bottle sales.
In Mead.
In Mead.
Specifically.
So, and how long have you been in those state stores? A year?
April.
1 quarter.
1 quarter. So in 1 quarter, you've
Well,
basically
we have
taken
eight-
roughly
one-
half the market share?
A little bit more than, yeah.
But here's
Guys,
the
that's
beauty of
impressive.
that. We did not take the market share. We grew it.
That's right.
That's
Yes.
even better.
That was
That's
what-
even better.
That's what we want to make sure that the state knows.
So the existing Mead that was there is still selling. You've
Yes.
drawn people into the Mead
To
market.
the best that I can tell,
it's hard to tell, but it didn't shrink.
Oh, that's awesome though. That's really cool because you're not trying to unseat somebody
It's
else
too small
in
of
a thin market. Exactly. Yeah.
It's less than 1%.
it's actually
is it really?
the opposite.
Wow.
It's like, well, at first, okay, I'm a competitive guy, and in my old world, I certainly looked at it not quite in a zero sum game, but zero sum ish.
Okay.
Occasionally, we can't do that now. We absolutely can't. And so, what I want to see is the Mead category become something, because right now, even if we got 100% of the sales, it's still not enough. I'd rather have like 10 to 15% of category sales that are 20 times that we're at right now.
Well, let me ask you something then. So in this scenario that you're working under right now from your sales and marketing, what is the perfect customer? Like if somebody would walk up and say, "Hey, I want to work with you," who would it be? Because I'm trying to think through, because we have a lot of people on the show. We work with country clubs, we work with restaurants, and
So I think, I mean, we could both answer this, but first of all, I do think that country clubs are a neat place to consider, right? I think
Okay.
There's lots of ways we could do that. I mean, because we're small and craft like this, we've even considered doing specific flavors for country clubs, and as we get more established and we have more time to do things, which we're about there, we've learned that restaurants that have like higher end, that have a lot more craft brews, right? So like sort of that market. We've done really good with smokehouses, right? So our smokehouses have done well, right? Because
Never thought of
historically Mead has been drank through history with smoked meat,
Okay.
like roasted meat, and so it pairs really well with that. So they seem to be our like sort of low hanging fruit, right? The no brainers.
Well, are there a lot of smokehouses around here?
Not a lot, but a couple more.
Okay.
The other thing is that what we found where we've had a decent amount of success is places that are okay. So here's a cool thing that you probably did not know.
I don't know much.
So, most bars and restaurants in Pennsylvania have a liquor license that you got to pay a lot of money for, but you can serve whatever the hell you want, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So Pennsylvania is actually making it easier and easier and easier to be a producer of alcohol. And one of the things that they've done, if you have your own distillery, brewery, or winery license, and you have any kind of a tasting room or restaurant attached to it, as long as you're making your own alcohol and that you have a Pennsylvania license, you don't need a liquor license.
Get out of here.
But every alcohol you serve has to be from Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So for example, I don't know. Have you ever been to
It helps
Stampede?
us work together.
I kind of like that.
It helps us work together.
I wish they would just pull a lot of the restrictions. Period.
That would
But at
actually
least if
be
you're gonna
pretty
pull
sweet.
them, at least encourage local business.
Right.
Hey,
Yeah.
can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So what about, you know what I think would be really cool? Like a stand at the Renaissance Fair.
So
Right?
I've talked with them. They do make their own. Once a year, they're going to give meaderies an opportunity.
Oh, that's kind of cool. For how long? For like a
About
week?
a week, yeah.
Okay.
And then you bring the
They make
history
it like
in.
Mead Week.
Oh yeah.
You know, because
and
the
those
gods
people are certainly
created
into
that.
it.
I read up on that stuff, how the gods created that dude, right, out of their spit.
Yeah.
And then,
That'll have to be
And
our next product.
That should go. That'll be in the back half of the show. We'll get.
where the Raven.
I know. I saw it. Yeah.
Jimmy
so
was telling me about this documentary.
in the second half of the
based on
show,
real
we'll
life.
go into all that, and then we'll give Tyler the links to pull that.
Look, I'm not
stuff
gonna
up.
lie, buddy. I can't look at you with your haircut. I can't do this. It's driving me insane. Like I don't know what happened to your head. I didn't realize it looked
I
like
just
that.
lightened the load a little bit.
There's something wrong with your head. You got to grow that hair back.
It kept falling to the side.
As
you
a
know, and
bald
just
guy, I
kinda-
feel like I'm the moral authority here on short haircuts, and yeah, no, it's not. It's not good.
So,
I'll grow it out just for you.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it.
I don't know, have you ever been to Stampede in Morgantown?
Yes.
Okay.
Love Stampede.
So go to their bar.
Okay.
I mean, they've got our products, but if you look, they've got an enormous, cabinet full of alcohols, whiskeys, gins, vodkas, some wines, and if you look at it, they're all from Pennsylvania, every last one of them.
I
So they
never
make
knew
all
that.
kinds of cocktails and stuff like that.
Huh.
There's a few things that they can't do, obviously, but it enables Pennsylvania distilleries and breweries and wineries to compete with a lot of other restaurants by with this. And so, but at the end of the day, their options are limited, and so we've had a lot of success with that.
That actually explains something else. So my wife owns her own company. Her largest client is the biggest wine and spirits distributor on the planet, and they hate Pennsylvania.
Yeah, of course they do.
And I always wondered why, but I think this might be part of it.
Well,
If they're
the
in,
only places that they can sell to that a distributor can even consider selling to is a restaurant. That's it. Because there's no such thing as liquor stores because they're all owned by the state and the state is its own distributor.
that's a big reason they hate it. Yeah.
And even restaurants do most of their liquor purchasing through the state stores.
Makes sense.
And so
Okay.
the only distributors that play in Pennsylvania are those that are willing to bring in, rare products that aren't carried by the state stores. It's like there's no market. I mean, you think Pennsylvania is one of the biggest states in the nation, but because of our system, which by the way, yes, it's so antiquated, but I do have to give the people who run Pennsylvania a pat on the back. It's way better than it was 10 years ago.
It is way better. And if you're a certain age, you remember the days when you couldn't buy on Sundays. You couldn't buy anything that was over a certain proof. It got really rough at one
Not
point.
only that, you're like, I don't know if I like that beer. Well, tough. You're going to buy 24, you're going to buy 0.
Well, maybe I'll buy my own and have it shipped here. No, you can't. No, that's not going to happen. It's gotten a lot better.
Are you guys able to do a mead truck?
Mead truck.
Oh my God, that would make me so happy.
I think a mead truck would be badass, right?
It would
And
be
you could pull
badass.
up to the Renaissance Festival, right? And you could rent
so-
you could park in the grass. You could go up to the castle on top of Reading when they do the
We could go up to kids'
You know,
baseball
to be fair,
tournaments.
Do never allow him any control over your marketing or strategy. It'll be fun for a
Well,
week until
it
you
could-
crash and burn.
it could
Top scum.
it could also just dub as your delivery truck, right? You know, and then you fly the sides open, pull into the parties, and go to the pig roasts. And
I'm sure there's a
That
permit.
actually would be kind of cool.
I'm sure there's a permit somewhere on that website that would let us do it.
Did I ever?
I think it would be awesome to roll up to the
take a
pig
long
roast,
time.
right?
Jimmy-
Like,
It would.
fly the
It
sides of the truck open.
Did I ever tell you the story about they had a beer truck they used to bring to the Berks County Chamber events over at the picnic? Like, do you ever go to that?
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. That beer.
When it got
There's
stolen?
beer trucks. No, I didn't.
All right, so I'm not going to say the person's name. Let's just say it rhymes with Schmalter Schmeth. And Schmalter got a little hammered. And he had a Suburban, and the beer truck, like they were going to close it down at a certain time, and he was having a lot of fun. So he backed a Suburban up to it, hitched the beer truck to his Suburban, and left. With the beer truck, he stole the beer truck. How that guy's not in prison? From the stories that I've been to personally, and that he's told me. But yeah, stole the beer truck. So
Well, he
I would
probably just
steal
borrowed
your
it.
meat truck.
He probably
could.
borrowed it. You're saying he stole it. He probably just borrowed
He
it.
brought it back.
Yeah.
It was a little later, but it was fine. Exactly. But it was fine.
It was an
Everything
official
was fine.
borrowing, man. That's
I just love that story. Only Schmalter Schmeatery.
I think you should do a truck and just follow like soccer soccer tournaments and stuff like that, and park just far enough away where the parents can come
Yep.
over.
Anywhere where a dad has to be.
Yes.
Yeah, like
moms too.
like in Gettysburg when the
Probably not
annual
wrong, yeah.
soccer tournament's there, and there's like 30
Dillsburg?
schools there.
Yeah,
There's like 30 schools there, right?
It's crazy, man.
Or 30 teams. Actually, they're not even affiliated with schools. It's all independent teams that are. put
Oh, no,
together.
in my personal opinion, the sickest son of a bitch on the planet is the person who has a first birthday party and does not serve alcohol. If you have a 1-year-old birthday party and do not serve booze, you should be shot. Like, you're the part of the problem in this
Yeah.
society. Like,
You
baby's
call-
not going to remember it, all right? It's there for us to get drunk.
and so
Even when the baby remembers it, who cares?
I don't care. I want to not remember it. And I need
And if
alcohol.
my
for that.
kids watch this podcast, they'll be like, "Yeah, that's Dad. he's legit. He's legit."
That's fantastic. Oh man! So all right, so I have to ask. I got a little bit of your background, not much, but I know you were in foods. But you mentioned his. What is your background?
So I
You can't really talk.
yeah right. so obviously I live on a farm. So I've farmed through most of my background,
Okay.
and that so that gave us sort of the plant of where we were going to do it. And then my professional background, I've had some restaurants, right? So I've owned and operated some restaurants.
Okay.
I've had I worked in and currently work in pharmaceuticals, right? So I've worked in different facets in pharmaceuticals. A lot of marketing. I've worked internally, in the pharmaceutical industry. So
Are you still doing pharmaceuticals now? Or?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's
Different capacity.
how do you go from farming to restaurants to pharma? Like it seems like some.
Well, I'll tell you what's interesting.
We're not
I'll
boring
tell you what's,
people.
I'll tell you
Yeah,
what's
let's hear
interesting, though. Pharmaceutical companies are very intertwined with farming. So, like the seed genetics are owned by like Monsanto seeds and those guys. So they're all owned by pharmaceutical.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, so they're very intertwined.
Okay.
So so long story short, I've really tried a lot of different industries. So when Scott said this, I was like, well, geez, it's a little bit of marketing. We'll do it on the farm and see what we could make a run of it. And it's sort of, and again, when we decided to do this was not meant to be a get rich quick scheme. Right, it was okay. We're
Would
gonna
have been nice, of course.
yeah, it would have been nice.
Of course, yeah, everybody wants
But
to.
the thought was, we're gonna build a brand slow, let it build itself, work, start small and go deep, and then just build the layers outward. Do what we're doing now, right? Start
way to do it.
Build your local support.
Yep.
Get a little bit broader. Start working with the state stores, work with some other stores, build the brand, and then possibly do maybe a tasting room, do something, but grow it grow it, let it grow itself, not necessarily try to overdo it, right? Because we've all had experiences where we've thrown a lot at something and then get behind the 8 ball and you're chasing numbers.
Yep.
Right, and so that was what we decided we weren't going to do, and if it takes years to get to where we may have been able to get earlier, well, that's okay, because at least we know we're making a sustainable model.
And you're not stuck with I call it the upside down triangle, where you're constantly fighting to chase debt.
And that's what we didn't want to do, right?
Nope.
So we didn't want to take on any debt. And the other thing that we wanted to do is we didn't want to compromise the quality of anything, right? So we wanted to be able to age everything to the age that it needs to be aged to.
Nice.
We didn't want to have to put anything out that wasn't what we want to put out, right? So it's everything that we've launched is what we wanted to launch and the quality that we want it to be. We haven't cut any corners. So obviously the bottles are, good bottles, even right down to the caps and the labels, right?
Yep.
Everything has been the highest quality. The honey that we use is the highest quality honey we can get our hands on, right? Everything. So we've cut 0 corners, and it'll make us take time, and even down to the distributors that we end up working with, we're being very cautious, and we've learned our lesson with that too. Like, we're being very cautious and taking our time with that, because once you make those decisions, they're hard to change too, right? So,
Gotcha.
So we're trying to take a plan where we're going, slow and steady, and smart, and not really take on much debt, so we can sort of make our decisions without any haste.
Well, and that's why, kind of like when I said before, like we didn't want to spend money that we didn't have to. The reason is so that we have the time to do this right, and that we, at the end of the day, we own our company. Because that's the other piece of it. When you look at a lot of both alcohol and food companies, very often the people who started it, they'll own that much.
Yep.
And they've got venture capitalists and angel investors and everybody like that telling them what to do because they don't have 50% anymore,
We had
or even close to 50%.
you ever heard of Unique Pretzels?
Yes.
That they came on and told their story, and they're Billy and Justin are the owners. They're good friends of mine, and that had gotten so bad for exactly that reason. But theirs was different. Theirs was because it was such an old business; it had generationally split so many times that they had 45 people that all owned 5%. Like it was insane. Like it was,
Wow.
and everybody was making $20,000 a year and had second jobs, and nobody could grow it because nobody actually made any money at it.
Oh.
And Billy and Justin, Billy specifically, he decided it had gotten so slim that he said, I don't want to be a part of the family business. He goes, I know this is a multi-million-dollar bakery, but what the best I can do is make $25,000 a year fighting with my family. He said, no. So we went to Wall Street, and his dad, Bill Sr., came back and said, hey, we need you. The family needs you. Like, come back from New York. Come and fix this and make it right. And he came back. He bought everybody out, consolidated ownership down to just him and his brother, and they went from a $3 million bakery to I think, what are they, about $60 million now?
Wow.
$60 million bakery in 10 years.
That's awesome. That's serious.
But what he tells me is, he goes, we never could have done this. He goes, we never should have had to have done this. He said, the problem is we had diluted it so much that it was not a real business. It was this thing that we all took for granted that happened to make pretzels. But you're right, but it's so easy to do. And it's even, I don't know if it's worse or better if it's family, but if it's angel investors, they expect return.
Yeah. Sure.
They expect so much more. Like, they're not just going to suckle at the teat. They're going to demand.
Sure.
Yes.
I mean, if it's venture capitalists, the same way.
Oh, venture capital is even worse.
Banks are going to stomp you. Like, I mean, everybody, it's.
I'd rather go very slow and be like, okay, well, I guess this isn't going to be the year, but still have it, and and do everything right because we know. Listen, we make good stuff. We make stuff better than just about everybody else. It is the ingredients we use, the way we make it, the care we put into it. I'm not saying that there's nobody else who can make what we make, but we make better stuff than most people.
Nice.
We've got good marketing. We've got good packaging. We're smart guys, and we have a lot of experience. We'll make it. I'm not concerned about that. That we have set it up though so that we can, if it's going to take us 5-10 years to really have this be super impactful, then it takes 5-10 years. We can survive it. Had we gone out and been like, let's get all this equipment, let's get, let's hire all these consultants, let's bring on this sales guy, let's bring on, I mean, trust me, I know how many ways there are you can spend money on this stuff, and if we had done that, we'd be sitting here going like, dude, we just gotta get this out there. We gotta get it. How are we gonna? We gotta get to $2 million like tomorrow. I know this. I know that. I didn't want any part of it.
When I started my first company, my wife told me I should look at investors. And I said, I want to be honest, I'd rather have 100% of the profits of $1 million business than 10% of the profits of a $10 million business, 100%. Even if they're the same number.
Right.
I was like, that's fine. But that way, at least I can grow that $1 million business to $2 million, and I still have 100%. I can never get back that 90. So I applaud you guys. Like, it's a harder path, but it's a much better path.
It's probably a little slower.
It's a slower path.
You maintain control.
I wouldn't say it's hard.
Everything.
And you have to be, you just have to be steady and.
Yeah, well, and we're also.
And I get, because I get a little randy.
Well, isn't life hard no matter what? Like, everything's hard.
Everything's uphill
It's
battle.
like, just choose your hard.
Yeah.
Right? It's not really about taking an easier route. It's just
You're right. Yeah.
There's also this. When I was in my 30s, I was starting my other company. And I had one kid at that time, and he was basically a baby. my viewpoint of the world at that point was tremendously different than what it is now. You know, at 51, I look at things completely and utterly different. What's important now was not important then, and what's not important now was important then. And so I think that a lot of the stuff in the business, and you know, Carmine's on the same page with me for just about everything. And so I think that if he and I had started this business when we were both 27, it would have been completely and utterly different.
You know it would have been 100%.
Yes.
Yeah, you'd be drinking the
Well,
product
we would,
and trying to run the
I-
business. Now you're just like more wise.
Oh, it would have been one for you, one for me.
Yeah. One for you, one for the customer.
It's not that you don't drink it now, but you're much more responsible, right?
It's all a trade-off, though, because you're also tired now.
Choose your
never
heart,
win.
man. Choose your heart.
Choose your heart.
Well, hey, I hate to do this, guys. We're going to take a break. We're going to take a break on this section. We'll be back. We'll be back with part 2. Would you guys mind if, when we come back for part 2, because we're going to separate this into 2 separate episodes. Sure. Can we do a tasting? Can I?
Yeah, for
Please,
sure.
yeah,
That's
try
what
this?
it is.
Yeah?
That's what-
Absolutely.
You don't mind? All right.
No,
Are you going to
no.
have some?
No, I wasn't gonna have any.
Yeah, I wouldn't give you any. I don't trust you with alcohol. You gonna have some?
This might
My
turn
man.
into one of those ugly shows.
They're all ugly shows. Have you watched this thing? It's a shit
yeah,
show.
yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back with part 2. Tyler, guys, thank you so much. And yeah, let's take a break and we'll be back.
The Broken Agenda Podcast. Sponsored by Laughing Rock Technology.